So, Rebel Moon Part 2.
You really have a knack for making me realize, like, maybe I should have been praising as much as I was. First you did it with Killing Joke, and now this.
I did do the reverse of making you appreciate the theatrical cut of Justice League more, though.
Yes. Again, yeah, you did do that. Yeah, because, okay, so real quick, when I first, so unlike part 1, where I've seen part 1 4 times, I've only watched part 2 twice because...
Including this one.
Yep, including this one. So, part 2 came out in, like, mid-April, so I've only watched it once, and this being the second time with the bootleg copy I have, I really have, for some reason, when I was watching it the first time, I just had a blast with it. Like, really fun. Like, I was thinking, like, oh my god, this is so much fun. It's super amazing. I think I gave it, like, a 4.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. After watching this and us kind of talking during parts of the movie, again, you really have ability for making me go, like, So I probably would knock it down now after, and we'll get into it. I would probably knock my Letterboxd rating of this down by a whole point, down to 3.5. I still like it, but it's definitely not as like high praise as I was giving it on my very first viewing.
Yeah, this was my first time seeing it, obviously, because I don't have Netflix, and the only thing that's on Netflix I really want is that 90s show. So, my first viewing of this, the first half before it really gets going, it has problems being a part 2 of something, but it's all right. The entire second hour of this movie is action, and I was just kind of bored by it, honestly.
Which and like you and I were kind of saying, action comes down to personal taste. So yeah. I guess we'll just we'll start at the beginning with Anthony Hopkins just literally recapping But by the way, in just pure dialogue, no actual imagery is shown. Yeah, in terms of recapping the first movie, it's just Anthony Hopkins recapping the entire first movie.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins recaps the first movie over footage of a bunch of bad guy ships like returning to the mothership, and it's like you could have done like stylized like clips of the people that he's talking about, so that just to reinforce what the fuck he's talking about. And they're like, they thought they were victorious. They were wrong, and it's like, well, they do eventually explain why, but it's like you killed one bad guy. I didn't get the sense in the first movie that they thought the fight was over, but they get dissuaded to that pretty quickly, so it's not that big a deal. And then like, God, what happens next? They bring Ed Skrein back to life.
Yeah, and he's like in a cocoon.
He's in a cocoon of gunk now.
And he has this look on his face of like, get me the fuck out of this shit.
Yeah. It's like, which confused the hell out of me because he looked like he was back just fine at the end of the last one, but apparently there was a whole lot of extra work yet to do. Which is...
Because I think all they did at the end of the first movie was they CPR'd him back to life. They or like defibrillate, like that was like a defibrillator. Mm-hmm. And so even if you bring someone back to life like using a defibrillator, you still want to like do medical tests on them to make sure they're okay and that try to find if any lasting damage.
Yeah, and then later when Ed Skrein is like done with all the medical treatments, and I think they try to imply that he's like super strong now. He makes a big deal out of, I have a scar from the Scargiver, and I'm like...
And I'll bare my chest in front of the Senate.
And I'm like, all the sex scars he got from in the first movie are gone, what the hell? It just looks like they missed one, because it looks exactly the same as the weird... I don't know if he was injecting drugs into himself in the first one, or if it was just for like spots for the tentacles of the sex monster to touch.
I don't really know what Ed Skrein was going on about with that. So I guess maybe the sex scars healed and the only thing he had left was where he stabbed. But is it just me, or I thought he was stabbed lower in the first movie? Like, I thought the stab wound was lower.
I thought he was stabbed in the back or something.
No, he wasn't stabbed in the back. I remember he was stabbed in the front. I just can't remember now in the first movie. Like I could have sworn the stab wound was a little lower on his body than like right here on his chest.
Yeah, I didn't remember how he got a chest wound in the first movie. From the first movie either. That kind of confused me, but I just figured like let it go. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention because we were kind of riffing over it. So it goes back to Velt, the tiny moon of farmers being harassed by the mother world, why that everything's been to save. And we do get an explanation of why the bad soldier who turned good then fucked off from the first movie, because he's been sticking behind to like send fake transmissions to the mother world, where it's apparently it's been 9 weeks and the mother world has not questioned for a second, how come none of the actual soldiers with authority ever answer our calls?
Yeah, and it's just this guy, and it only takes Ed Skrein, like when Ed Skrein's back in command, it takes Ed Skrein coming back and saying he's lying.
Yeah. It's like he's the only one who puts it together that he's lying. So like the guy comes back and tells everyone, we have 5 days to prepare before the mother world shows up.
And then Jaimon Hansu says we need to get all the grain together in 3 days so they can use it as a shield, because they're figuring if Ed Skrein and his troops really need the food, they're not going to open fire on them if they stack all their farming yields close to their house.
Yeah, they need the grain. It's the entire reason they came. So if we pile the grain around us, they won't just nuke us from orbit.
Which, to be fair, that actually it is an ingenious idea for a shield.
It's a pretty smart plan. Well, it's a pretty basic like bargaining chip. Like if you want a hostage, you put them somewhere that important. So like Jimon Hansu is like, okay, we have 3 days to farm and then 2 days to train. So then it cuts to multiple slow motion farming sequences
that go on for about 6 minutes or so, or however long. But before we get into the farming, there is a the name of the song escapes me right now. But there is a song that plays over the montage.
Yeah, there's a choir girl that has like 2 songs near the start of the movie that you liked.
Yeah, by a woman named Alison Crow, I think is her name, who also did record a song for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I think she has a very good singing voice, and I think the song actually does work well with the scene being conveyed. Because from what I understand of the song's lyrics, it sounds like it's a song about like taking care of your land. At least that's what I got from the song. I could be mishearing the lyrics, but every time I listen to that song, which is on my Spotify playlist, because I like that song so much. The farming montage, as ridiculous as it is, at least has a nice soothing song that goes with it.
Like they through the whole first act, they're farming and they're milling and stuff, and before they start training, it's not too terribly paced for this movie.
Yeah, but when we were watching the first hour of the movie, and I looked at what time, it's like we're actually almost an hour into this movie already.
Yeah, it's like nothing's happened, but at least like enough kinda happens to where you don't notice. But I think where people's problem comes in is this is like part 2, where you're expected to kind of watch this right after part 1, where there's now a giant lull of not really anything happening.
And so they're having like all these. I mean, some of the shots are cool, but it does get kind of ridiculous with like how much of the farming is in slow mo, like taking a scythe and cutting the grain in slow mo. Pouring the grain into like bags and containers in slow-mo.
Young children like tossing it up to where it looks like it's a fucking pasta house ad.
Blowing a flower in slow-mo. Like if you don't like if you aren't entertained or if you hate all of Snyder's isms with his movie, this movie's on steroids, and it's not going to change your mind either way, because this is
the slow-mo was at critical mass in this movie.
Like even more so than I would say even more so than Justice League.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Snyder just went pure critical mass here.
Well, explain why anime, because like the first half I don't have a whole lot to complain about. Yeah. So after they're done farming, they start training with weapons, which is basically exactly the scene in The Mandalorian episode 4 where they're like training the.
And that episode's only 40 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, it takes Zack Snyder 4 hours and 15 minutes to tell a story that Star Wars did in 40 minutes, which is just ridiculous because it's the exact same plot.
And the thing that is kind of funny about like their prepping is the farmers really don't have any issue getting ready.
Yeah, like
it's like all perfect.
Like this exact scene is in the movie Glory, which is a story about like an all-black infantry unit in the Civil War.
Yeah,
it's and it's like they always have like the villagers or whoever's being trained have trouble hitting a target with the gun because it has to show them like actually getting experience and stuff. They're perfect shots in this movie away.
Like, and the woman and this one the farm girl who was assaulted in the last movie has this like shotgun thing and she's like perfect with it.
Yeah, just you call it a blunderbuss. Just fires a blast that blows the atomizes the thing and the scarecrow that she's shooting it at, and perfect shot immediately.
And I will say the funny thing that kind of the movie contradicts itself right there. Didn't they have a line in the first movie when they handed Korra her weapon saying, if I remember, they said like, "Our village is not for such weapons."
Yeah,
you had a stockpile of weapons you were sitting on.
Well, yeah, because Jimon Hansu specifically calls that out because he says like, get all the hunting weapons. Like they had blasters for hunting the elk or whatever, wherever Anthony Hopkins got his antlers from, but didn't occur to them to actually use any of it. And by the way, these weapons are literally just like a pirate pistol with
a laser blast.
Yeah, just literally Earth weapons, but they shoot lasers now. Like, not even trying to be subtle about it anymore.
But anyways, like, the training kind of goes on, and there is some funny parts to it. One of the things is...
we're going to train you to use these knives and stabbing weapons, and then, like, Nemesis...
Since you're the swords person,
and then Nemesis, the Asajj Vengeance lady, just cuts a guy's head off, and that's fine. But, like... They don't actually show them teaching them any kind of weapons training, which, again, they have time for in The Mandalorian, because it's not just whack, 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 and stuff. There's also footwork. There's also, like, gauging how far away to stand from your opponent. There's also needing to parry shit, because everyone in this universe uses bladed weapons for some goddamn reason. There's, like... It seems like... It's like if you were, at any point as a kid, played with a toy lightsaber, you're qualified.
But no, that's pretty much the way to describe it. Is like they're just whacking away with the knives.
Yeah, and also like they dig a bunch of underground trenches that were complete with supports and stuff that they built out of nowhere, which maybe they had that already, although I don't know why they would. And they like dig out and repair Korra's ship that we're only just now finding out exists from when she landed on the planet, which I was expecting a backstory to that. That's probably going to be in the extended cut. And I'm like, they did all of this in 2 days? Sure.
So they get ready to train in 2 days, like all combat ready. Every trap is like, and they also they also go to Korra's ship that she came in, and they pull that thing out to the cave.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be fair, they pull it to the village and then she flies it into the cave.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right.
Anthony Hopkins' robot is just watching them do all this, by the way.
He's not doing anything.
So far as we know, the only person in the village who even knows that he exists is the girl who almost got assaulted and Korra. So when he shows up later, I just imagine Jima and Hansu going like, who the fuck is this?
It's like, first off, what? Second, the fuck?
Yeah. So they do all the training... And then Jima and Hansu gathers all the main characters to sit down at a table, and I forgot. The assassination. We need to talk about that.
Well, not just that, but there's also Korra goes into a cave, and she Anthony Hopkins is there, and they're actually having a really nice heart-to-heart conversation, and Anthony Hopkins is like, you give me hope. You don't make me feel as much hopelessness. And then Korra's like, help us. Anthony Hopkins is like, fuck off.
Yeah, he's like, you give me hope, but you're all doomed. So, you give me hope, but you also give me the opposite of hope. So, like, bye then.
So, that's honestly, we were both kind of just giggling at that scene because it is kind of a funny contradiction.
Yeah.
And then
so early on in the movie, like Cora is walking along with male lead whose name I couldn't remember. His name is Gunner. Well, that's one of his names. They call him something else. I don't give him a care.
Such a stupid name.
Apparently they have a relationship and start fucking. And for pillow talk, she fills in the rest of her backstory.
Her tragic backstory, which, by the way, gives us another Carrie Elwes scene, but he doesn't say much. I think the most of what he says in this extended flashback is like,
what's going on here?
What's going on? It's like, good God,
something's not right.
It's like, good God, man, tell me what's going on.
Yeah. So, like, the big backstory here is the king of the mother world had a daughter who had magic healing powers, and it convinced him that they should be peaceful. But the General Belisarius, no, he was a senator, my bad, who was Cora's adopted father, decided to betray the king and stab him so that they could keep being a military power.
And he sets this whole elaborate trap up, which he lures the king like onto this dreadnought, which becomes known as the King's Gaze. Like draws Carrie. I'm just gonna call him Carrie Elwes. So yeah,
I don't remember the king's name either.
Yep, draws Carrie Elwes and his family with his daughter Princess Issa onto the ship. And when they come into this hangar area or whatever, first off, there's these weird people with hoods that have the Millennium Eye on them.
Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah.
Yep, and they're playing violins, like I guess maybe royal music for the king.
Yeah.
And then
so the Belisarius has all his men stab the king and the queen to death. I don't know why they don't just use guns, but I would guess Zack Snyder wanted the Julius Caesar symbolism.
And while this is happening, the people on the violins are still sitting there, and they start playing something, and they start playing like more dramatic music. And okay, even as someone who still finds enjoyment in this movie, even on a first viewing, that distracted me because my mind was going, what is this?
And then the really confusing part, like Cora gets browbeaten into shooting the princess, and then her adopted dad basically decides to pin the entire murder and assassination scheme on her.
Sorry, real quickly. And then after Princess Issa dies, she dematerializes into light.
She's like, light is bleeding out of her for some reason because it looks like something out of a goddamn fairy tale, like something that would be in one of those Snow White and the Huntsman movies.
So yeah, the Princess Issa has and we'll get to her later.
Yeah, because So Belisarius decides to pin the murders of the entire royal family on his daughter, which give me the funny mental image of how far ahead in advance was he planning this? Did he pick her up as a 9-year-old child, specifically planning to pin this all on her someday?
Because Cora is at least bare max 30 years. 30 years old, at least, bare minimum.
They've probably been with him for like 2 decades as an adopted daughter. So this is stupid. This staging of this is all stupid for any number of reasons. 1, why did he pick his daughter? 2, why did he pick one person that could fight back and actually cause some damage? 3, so basically the backstory of Cora, that she's this legendary badass, is all a lie. Kind of like basically the deleted scene from the first Pirates, where we're going to find out that Jack Sparrow's tall tales were all a lie. And 4, the one person who has a gun when everyone else is armed with knives is the one person you're pinning on this, who is no reason not to just shoot you all to death. But of course she doesn't. She leaves, and then they don't fill in what happens between there. So it's like, and as this whole betrayal plot is going on, the quartet is playing like dramatic tension music, complete with the release when she just decides to fuck off. So it's like, those are some dedicated ass musicians.
And I'm just thinking, like, were they like ordered or something to do that? And
the band played on.
Yep, and so just kind of talking about the stupid staging of it. It's implied he was planning this assassination for the better part of at least 2 decades and some change.
Yeah.
And that just makes no sense to me. Like, who plans an assassination 20 years in advance?
Well, it's kind of all over the place, because it sounds like the king didn't decide to become peaceful until his daughter was born, and he didn't decide to assassinate the king until he became peaceful. But that still sets up, like, because he pinned this on Cora, it feels like he was planning it before it needed to become a thing. which makes no sense.
And then yeah, like why pin it on his adopted daughter? Like for all of we talked about in the last video, how the scene in the first movie where Belisarius finds Korra, Arthur
copy of the Thanos
and Gamora. For all of Thanos' faults, he at least cared about Gamora and wouldn't granted he still sacrificed her.
People criticize that scene for saying it was love, but there is such a thing as toxic love. Yeah. Like it was love to him, basically.
Yeah. But at least he didn't until he throws her off a cliff, at least he didn't do something stupid like try and double cross her.
Yeah, double cross literally the one person who would be a threat to you in this situation. He didn't have enough random underlings he could pin this on.
He could have pinned it on one of those senators that was there with him.
Or, better yet, he could have blamed it on one of his faceless soldiers, killed him so that there's no one to say otherwise. Problem solved!
Yeah, so again, he probably just wanted the Julius Caesar symbolism.
Oh, I guarantee you he did, because in a universe where guns are readily available, everyone uses little pussy knives instead.
So yeah, so that's, by the way, all that backstory that tragic backstory we were just describing is pillow talk.
Pillow talk after Sophia Botella and Gunnar finish fucking. Yeah, I guarantee you a sex scene's going to be in the extended cut.
I mean, I hope there is.
I wouldn't. Well,
sorry, I'm a shameless flirt when it comes, or I'm a shameless simp when it comes to actresses like Sophia Botella.
So, the point we were getting to earlier is Jimon Hansu sits all the main characters down
for a giant ass exposition.
Basically goes around the table and says, "Everyone, tell me your tragic backstory." Every single one of them boils down to the homeworld killed someone I care about, and I want revenge, which confused the fuck out of me for Tarzan's case, because he was a royal, basically high class, living the high life. At no point do we get any hint that he has weapons training, so I wonder and his whole specialty in the first movie was training beasts, but there
were almost what looked like dragons attacking the attacking his home.
So he's not a trained soldier. His whole specialty is training beasts, and there are no beasts here. So this whole movie, I was going, what the fuck is Tarzan's purpose here?
Honestly, I was still more distracted by the fact that there's dragons here.
Yeah, there's dragons on the dude's homeworld. And that was where I finally pieced together why... I was complaining in part one that the mother world made no sense in regards to this big universe, because there's this huge universe and that where we go to several planets of it, but only this one planet is a problem. The explanation they seem to be going with is that the mother world is literally the only planet in the universe that has any kind of military, which is A, stupid, and B, dumb writing. Which, stupid and dumb are synonyms, my bad.
Well, to quote Deadpool, well, that's just lazy writing.
Yeah. If that's what you're going with...
That's just lazy writing.
Or explain it better. It's just...
So we get Tarzan's tragic backstory... And we also get Jaimon Hansu's tragic backstory, and or at least it's visualized for the audience now. Mm-hmm. And he's I guess betrayed the mother world. His troops tried to fight off the mother world troops, and then all of his troops get captured and they're tied up and whatnot, and they put those Millennium Eye bags over the heads of his soldiers.
So what the fuck does that symbolism even mean?
And I don't know.
And then they just blow them up with what is clearly supposed to be their version of the Death Star, just the Dreadnought's cannons.
And Jaimon Hansu says they were executed. I'm like, no, they were obliterated.
And then Jaimon Hansu's like, I would never rest and never surrender, except for that one time when I became a drunk and surrendered because I was farting around some gladiator planet in the ass under nowhere.
And then we get Asajj Ventress Visas Mars backstory. And her backstory boils down to, again, Mother World raised my planet. I cut off my arms, put on metal gauntlets so I could handle the lightsabers. Because apparently the way lightsabers work in this universe is that when they're activated, their handles get to be so hot that you cannot physically handle them unless your hands are covered by a cloth or you have robot hands.
It's like Zack Snyder was mad that this lightsaber is too scientifically implausible, so he wanted, like, the handle gets super hot, so you need robot hands, or when you're core at the end of the movie, you can just wrap a cloth around it. Just use oven mitts. But yeah, like, literally her whole backstory is, it kind of skips, just kind of passes over, like, her village was betrayed by the Mother One's like, we had these ancient weapons, like lightsabers, even though everyone in the fucking military has them anyway, except they're blue. And yeah, like, she just literally just cut off her arm and then put stuck robot arms into the stumps so she could use the weapons.
And then the Resistance fighters backstory.
Literally, like, she was enslaved by the Mother World. Ray Fisher has one 5-second scene in this,
and he doesn't say a goddamn thing.
Well, to be fair, if you had seen his performance in the first one, you wouldn't give him lines either.
And then, I'll say my little quip about, like, being enslaved for the resistance fighter being enslaved on mine. I'm like, ooh, the mines of Kessel.
Yeah, it was pretty close to that, actually. And then it gets to Quora, and I'm like, God damn it, we've already heard her backstory in 4 segments. And she kind of just passes some bullshit about how she used to work for the army, and Jimon Hansu doesn't buy it. He's like,
he has this look of, I know you're lying.
He's just like, he doesn't say this, so he's like, I know you're full of shit.
So if it sounds like we're talking a lot about Jaimon Hansu, is because Jaimon Hansu all but becomes I guess I still call him a secondary main character.
Well, through the first half of the movie, he's basically like a secondary main character, but he doesn't really do much in the second half. Like, he has a brief battle scene where he's kind of like charging through, shooting someone, takes about a full minute to kick someone off a bridge because of the slow-mo. But, like, it's kind of striking to me how prominent and important he was in the first half. Like, he doesn't do much before or after that. Like, he's integral to the planning, but not to the fighting.
At least he, like, got stuff to do and stuff to say, because Jaimon Hansu, I would even say more so than, like, because I still like Sophia Boutella in this movie, but Jaimon Hansu takes the spotlight as the best performance in the movie.
Yeah, dude's batting for the fences.
Jaimon Hansu has a really great scene where, like, the full song he sings is on Spotify. It's about 3.5 minutes, but Jaimon Hansu sings like about like a minute or so of a song, and it's in this, like, I get, for lack of a better term, African sounding dialect.
Yeah,
and it's a very beautiful scene, and the dude can sing.
It is, yeah. Like, I really hope he has a big part in A Quiet Place Day One, because I know he's in it.
Like, I want that dude to have a leading role.
Yeah, Lord knows he's earned it.
like I see the dude pop up in, like, supporting roles everywhere, but, like, the dude is a great actor. Give him a starring role.
Yeah, I know.
Like, make him the main character in something.
Yeah.
Make him and Lupita Nyong'o the main characters of A Quiet Place Day One.
Yeah, well, little late, but yeah, I'm curious. Yeah. We don't know anything about the structure of that movie. I hope he's, like, one of the main characters, but it's too early to tell.
Yeah, no, like, if there's one thing that is undeniably great about this movie, is Jaimon Hansu, like you said, is just the dude's a pro. He is trying his absolute hardest in this movie.
Yeah, he pours his all into it. So, like, this is about the halfway point of the movie now. So the Mother World comes back, the same ship, and they have scanners that can somehow, like,
read heat signatures.
Well, they not only read heat signatures, they get full scans of the ground to find out where the grain all is, because apparently they have dedicated grain sensors, which, becomes an ass pull later when, like, just skipping ahead briefly, Cora's entire plan for defeating them is to sneak her old-ass ship that's years old onto the mothership, because the ship's advanced sensors somehow can't tell, oh, this is a ship that's, like, years old, because we don't have...
And the smoke that's emanating from the ship is just a smoke grenade. It's not actual structural damage to the ship.
Like, my expectations there might be off, because when you scan ships in Star Wars TIE Fighter, like, you get a full readout of, like, the ship's condition and its cargo and everything.
That giant dreadnought should be able to do that.
Well, especially if it can spot grain inside the buildings.
And not only can it spot it, it can model it for you.
Yeah. So, like, the bad guys are coming down and they realize, oh hey, all the women and all the women, not the women, like all the children and old people and maybe the women too are in this like long building up at the top along with a bunch of grain. So we'll just send a bunch of soldiers there and then we've got them by the balls. And they send Ed Skrein down to negotiate with Sofia Boutella. He shows off his new face chest scar. And
Sofia Boutella literally is about to surrender. Like she's willing to say fuck the entire plan that they just spent days putting together.
Well, it's implied she's doing it out of guilt because she doesn't want them dying in her name. But like they're gonna die anyway.
She was still willing to say screw the plan.
Yeah, she was of all people should know that the Mother World is gonna kill them all anyway. So that confused me to where Gunnar has to be the one who like shoots a bell to let everyone know that the plan is on. But the thing that we both picked up on during the time when Ed Skrein is talking to Sofia Boutella, the background behind whoever's talking is blurred as fuck and in fisheye lens, where everything's like a circle.
And it's reminiscent of the way Snyder shot the nightmare scene at the end of Justice League with Joker, and the way he shot the entirety of Army of the Dead.
And yeah, that was annoying as balls because like it is so blurry around them that it is impossible not to notice.
So yeah, it's just weird, and then the action kicks off, and it's about a 50-minute action scene after that.
Yeah, something like that. We didn't check the time, or I didn't check the time.
I was watching the clock, and just because I wanted to be sure just how long this action is, and the action goes on for at least a solid 55 minutes, or maybe not 55, but at least like 45 to 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's still a very long action scene for the climax.
Yeah. So people spring out of the dirt and shoot at the soldiers, but Ed Skrein like basically trolls through and starts killing them.
Oh, prior to the action starting, I kind of said this. I'm a sucker for like a cool like landing sequence, like showing showing a bunch of forces getting dropped off, and to like emphasize the scale of the threat, or at least the odds that the farmers are facing. I'm like, yeah, I just get a kick out of those kinds of shots.
There is also a really well composited done shot where it's like that shows Velt is like green or something. It's an orbit over a planet that's bright red, and then the Mother World ship has like a bright blue to its engine, so it contrasts with both of them. That was a really nice shot.
And we were like, oh my god, color in a Snyder movie.
Yeah, like one thing this has over part one, it takes place on a planet that's not orange.
And so like you can actually have color, like different contrasting colors.
Yeah. So like the fighting starts, a bunch of people spawn out of the trenches and like shoot at the soldiers.
Fires a rocket launcher.
Yeah, and Ed Skrein like just jumps down into the trenches, starts killing them because he's got plot armor, so he can march headlong into enemy fire and no one will shoot at him. Meanwhile, soldiers try to break open where they've got the basically the old and the kids and stuff, but Asajj Ventress is there and has a big lightsaber fight. And this was where it really struck me, where the slow motion is a problem, because the lightsaber fight could have been cool if it wasn't at half speed. The entire goddamn lightsaber fight, it's in slow motion, and then it will keep cutting to slower motion. Like if you had Okay.
It's 300 on steroids.
Okay, so even if you're someone who swears by the Duel of the Fates fight at the end of the Phantom Menace, which I know you probably do, that fight scene would suck if the entire fight was at half speed and you kept slowing it down to quarter speed for certain slashes. Like, you can have the best fight scene in the world, but you run it that slowly, it's gonna be boring as fuck.
And from there on out, the slow-mo does absolutely reach critical mass.
Because, like, Jimon Hansu, when he has his big scene, like, they're all running out, it's all in slow motion. He just kicks a random dude off a bridge.
And it takes like a full 30 seconds for the dude to fall.
And it's not even like he's falling to his death, because it's like a shallow creek.
Yeah, it's like... like that scene is like the slow-mo, like you complained about the slow-mo in Zack Snyder's Justice League using the in parts using the "you are wasting a lot of time here."
Yeah.
And that made me appreciate the slow-mo in Justice League.
And I didn't know. It's like us with Blood Rain 3 last night. I didn't know it could get that much worse.
But it did. like to me, it doesn't annoy me as much. I more got a kick out of just laughing at the absurdity of the slow-mo.
Just how insanely over the top they went with it. So,
and Snyder's excuse for this is slow-mo looks cool. He
well,
literally said that in an interview, like when asked, "What do you say about the complaints that people have about your use of slow-mo? It looks cool."
I think Double Toasted, I think, kind of hit the nail on the head when they were talking about trying to dig into the psychology of Zack Snyder. I think his real thing is, and you notice it in this one because he has like a lot more of himself in this project. Like, he is so in love with a shot that he wants to like extend that one shot out as long as possible, just like make it like a painting, and that's why it moves so slow. Except, by that logic, there are about 50 paintings he wants to focus on at the end of this movie. So, like, this climax would be half an hour if it ran at normal speed.
So yeah, the climax like keeps going. So yeah, they come in, they have the hand-to-hand or the lightsaber fight to the point where she actually Asajj Ventress blocks blaster shots.
She does, which the reason it's supposed to be like the reason the Jedi can do that is they have the Force for like heightened reflexes. There's no the Force in this, so like
or at least if it is, it's not explained or mentioned in any capacity.
Yeah, so they can just do that. And like Ventress, who is like probably the one interesting character with an interesting backstory and a cool look.
She gets like a few lines, most of which comes from when she's expositing her tragic backstory.
And then she dies.
Yeah, she gets killed in her fight. And I kind of made this point to you. So I know there's another Magnificent Seven movie, but I've seen the Magnificent Seven with Chris Pratt and
I have too. I just don't remember.
And Denzel Washington. One of the members of the Magnificent Seven is an Asian character who also specializes in sword fighting / knives, and he is one of the members of the few members of the Magnificent Seven that get killed during the battle.
Yeah,
and so this exact same thing happens, and I'm like.
Yeah, you pointed out the exact same number of main characters die in the Magnificent Seven as in here,
and it just kind of like. It just struck me as weird as like I know Snyder values diversity, but it feels like he killed off one of like an actress from like one of the most historically underrepresented like categories of actors.
Yeah.
So sorry, I don't really know where I was going with that. Minor bad tangent aside, it just struck me as weird is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got you. So,
and again, because she was the most interesting character, the most visually interesting character, I'm like, I like her. I want to know more about her.
And they do something weird with her in this movie where there's this one boy, young boy, that's like making googly eyes at her the whole movie, and then like comes to her right at the end, like we're supposed to just get a connection for like her whole deal in the first movie, which goes completely unmentioned here, is that she had a kid and they died. So obviously, like she's supposed to be like all motherly to this kid, and that just started making weird eyes at her or something. So, but like that was just a weird thing to like foist onto this character for the.
And
like,
she takes a nap for most of the farming. Yeah, it's like you were saying. The actors must have been like, "You brought me into a movie about farming. I'm going to bed."
I just imagine like this badass assassin's like, "You brought me here to farm. Screw this." Oh, and that was another thing during the farming. Jimon Hansu is just wearing normal ass Earth human farmer clothes,
and he's using a human farming tool. Aside like they're. Aside from the hoverboard that they were using to load the grain onto, they're using human methods of farming. And you said something about appreciating Uncle Owen now.
I appreciate like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and Star Wars were also farmers, but they were water farmers on a desert planet. Like it was sci-fi enough to where it wasn't distracting you because like all this normal everyday Earth shit is happening in a galaxy far, far away. But like until the hover sled pops up, you could sell that segment, and no one would be able to tell that it was around a sci-fi movie.
Like you could have shown that clip without context, and you said like, "What kind of movie do you think this is?"
Yeah, like okay, I hate to go here, but it feels like I would have guessed like a period drama about slavery, just because.
Oh yeah.
Because all the extra epic weight put onto like the harvesting and.
Sorry. I'm just thinking of the slow-mo shot, just how ridiculous some of the farming in slow-mo is, where Jaimon Hansu is like, sorry, Rouge, is like this is the scythe, as we're like, and it doesn't just end there. It's like he's bringing it back.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of the second half of this movie is just a bunch of laser shooting, so it's kind of hard to commentate on a lot of it. Like,
because the action really comes down to personal taste. Like you said, like you can go first.
Well, my problem with a lot of this movie, like, there are lens flares the likes J.J. Abrams has never seen in this. There's soft lighting all over the place, and I know this is for the battlefield, but there are a lot of shots in the second half where it's just the screen is just covered in fucking fog and smoke. It was like, Snyder is known for his visual effects, and this movie looked fucking ugly to me because of those three factors over and over and often combined.
I still thought it looked pretty nice, and like, again, to me the action was directed with enough kinetic energy that, again, I was still invested in the action, and it still puts a smile on my face just watching everything play out. And I'm like, the best way I can describe this is it's like the kind of fun a kid has when he's just like he's got his action figures and is just smashing them together.
Yeah, except the action figures are usually people you recognize and are attached to.
Fair point, but again, there's enough of like Snyder's, I think, obvious talent at directing action scenes that it's at least enough to keep me interested and keep me invested instead of just tuning out.
Well, I don't say I was tuning out because I know I was paying attention for like to do this, but I was bored through a lot of, cause especially since every time something cool would happen, like the brief bits of lightsaber fight, it would go in slow motion to where it took forever to happen. I had something. One of the soldier, the Furiosa soldier that Ray Fisher left behind, sits out like the first half of the fight and then just pops out of nowhere.
Pops out of nowhere. And then, like, when she's done doing her thing, she leaves her gun, even though it's not implied, even though it's never implied her gun has ceased to function or is out of ammo.
Like, I think the implication is she was going for the rocket launcher.
But she still could have grabbed her assault rifle and
brought it with her,
slung it on her back.
Yeah, and there was one weird edit of this movie where it looked like as farmers go from getting their asses kicked to having basically driven off the soldiers before they bring in walkers, and it was a weird ass edit. It's like basically about the point where it's right after like Jaimon Hansu has his action sequence.
And then Tarzan also has the charge with the knife. Like, okay,
Tarzan is charging this entire movie with no shirt, like his back's out, and doesn't take a scratch. And he's fine.
And there's a hilarious moment where Tarzan's given like a quick pep talk, and he's like, "Kill your enemies!" And then one guy's like, "Or die trying!" And then Tarzan's like, "Leave the death to your enemies."
I think it's like the guy goes, "Fight! Willing to fight! Willing to die!" And we were both like, "Maybe only that first part!" And Tarzan says, "Leave the dying to our enemies," which is like the clunkiest way and least funny way of saying that. But
it was still kind of funny, though.
Yeah, not bad.
Just the context of, like, maybe leave the dying to other people.
Yeah. So, like, eventually the tide turns to where the soldiers have, like, walkers with big-ass Gatling guns.
That are on the bottom of them, though.
Yeah, which you'd think you would want those mounted high so they can actually,
okay, this isn't a great visual, but, like, take the blaster cannons of the Razor Crest, like...
basically where the headlights are down at the bottom here.
Yeah, or just flip the Razor Crest upside down. It's not a great visual, but this is the closest thing we got.
Well, you know what?
Or better yet, is if you attach the blasters to here.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Republic gunship has those nose cannons on the front and bottom, except it's an aerial-based vehicle. Imagine if you did that on a tank, kind of.
Or better yet, imagine if the ATTE that the clones drive had the cannons on the bottom of the thing.
Yes. So, like, that was fucking baffling design. But, like, so the soldiers, the farmers and the heroes are getting their asses kicked, and suddenly Then Anthony Hopkins' robot character comes in.
And both our reactions could best be described as where's that thing from that saying of first off what?
It's from I got it from Dragon Ball Z Abridged, where Dr. Gero like tries to fight Piccolo, and then he finds out Piccolo got a big power. But he's like, first off, what? Second, the fuck?
And we were also like, both of us were thinking, where the fuck have you been?
Yeah. So like, Anthony Hopkins' robot is bulletproof, takes a gun and massacres all the soldiers,
and
wipes out a walker single-handed, and does all this while wearing a crown of thorns that he didn't have in the last movie for Jesus symbolism,
and is wearing a cape.
Yeah. So it's like, you bitch-ass motherfucker, you could have fought this whole battle yourself.
How many farmers died because of you? Like, Anthony Hopkins could have single-handedly could really have helped with mounting a defense. And again, he was like, you make me feel not as hopeless. You're not gonna win.
You make me feel hope. You're all doomed. So, and again, like, he makes this big save for people who have no idea who he is, because Korra's the only one who knows about him, and she's on the ship.
And when Djimon Hounsou sees, by the way, his name's James or Jimmy.
He's credited as Jimmy in the first movie. He's called James here.
And then Djimon Hounsou's look is just, who the it's like,
who is this guy?
Well, the comparison I would use is when Michael Fassbender in X-Men Apocalypse turns around, sees Apocalypse, and he's like, who the fuck are you?
Yes, that's like his expression, basically. So, yeah, basically the robot comes in and ends the battle single-handedly, which he could have done at any time.
And then we have a major action scene like Korra single-handed. So
while all this is happening, Korra like sneaks onto the Motherworld's home ship with Gunner, and like they pose as injured soldiers because they have like old and kind of bloody uniforms. The scans somehow have no way of figuring out that this is an old ship and not actually part of their forces, which, given all the other high tech, feels like an ass pull. But like, so they get aboard the ship, they start kill everyone, and she goes to like sabotage the core, meets like zero resistance on the way, like this was fucking Rebel Assault 2 all over again. And like, she puts bombs on this reactor-looking thing, and then it turns out the reactor is a face.
And that brings to another. And by the way, that thing where like the reactor looks like it's a living face or something. So like that could be a potentially interesting bit of world building. Gets absolutely no follow-up for the rest of the movie. Maybe it'll get followed up on, and apparently Zack Snyder has 4 more Rebel Moon movies planned. So maybe it'll get followed up on in there, but. This kind of has a problem. This was kind of a problem in Snyder's movie Army of the Dead. In Army of the Dead, there are 2 potentially interesting bits of world building in that movie. For one thing, it's implied there are zombie robots or robot zombies. Again, as silly as that sounds, at least that's a somewhat interesting bit of world building for the movie. And then there's the implication. So the team that's trying to rob like the hotel vault in Army of the Dead, there's an implication of like they see skeletons or charred corpses of what look like bodies that are clearly dressed like the characters are, and it's implied that maybe there's a time loop or a time paradox or something. Or
just another soldier group that went in before them, maybe.
Well, maybe, but it is I remember a character does make the comment. That they look exactly like them. So there's the implication that there's a potential time loop or time paradox. Again, it's not followed up on at all. Maybe it'll get followed up in future installments, but it's just
making Army of the Dead movies to make Rebel Moon movies. So if it does get resolved, it's going to be ages from now.
Yeah, but supposedly he's still working on an Army of the Dead sequel. But anyways,
well, he's also working on wanting to finish Sucker Punch. So yeah, Lord only knows what all he's got in mind. Jesus.
But anyways, back to the reactor turning into a face. The whole point of me talking about Army of the Dead there was just to show. Admittedly, again, as someone who likes Zack Snyder, it is a problem when he introduces potentially really interesting bits of world building and does not follow up on them and just expects the little tidbit you get to satisfy you.
And somehow, like, they apparently putting bombs on the face core rigged it to where when they try to shoot the gunship's big cannons, that somehow makes all the bombs on the face explode. I don't know what.
Maybe the face was connected to the gun.
You talking about robot zombies around me, though. I alphabetized all my movies, and the last number one alphabetically is the Zombinator. Zombies and the Terminator combined.
Oh,
I have not watched it yet. I'm sorry, that was just too good a point not to mention.
But so Korra's sabotaging the ship from the inside. I mean, it looks cool and all, and then when the ship the
ship starts crashing from having blown up its power core.
And there's a pretty unique fight scene that's kind of like a slightly different take on the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight from Revenge of the Sith.
Just in the sense of, like, the entire environment around them is, like, collapsing and stuff, because they're on this ship that's, like, listings, so it's like the opening of Revenge of the Sith, where the ship is kind of slanting progressively, and they're, like, still fighting as it goes on, which was kind of cool. But, like, before this all starts, like, Ed Skrein is waiting by the Korra ship and had no idea that Gunner was in the ship, so he's like, oh, holy crap! Shoots him in, like, the side or something.
And then Sophia Boutelle and Ed Skrein have a brief lightsaber fight.
They both have blue lightsabers. Oh my god, that might be another Anakin versus Obi-Wan parallel.
Yep.
Because they both have blue in that one too.
So yeah, it's a brief lightsaber fight as the ship is crashing, so there is a ticking clock to the fight scene.
Yeah, that fight was good, except I call bullshit on how it ends, because Gunner somehow teleports behind Ed Skrein to stab him in the chest when he's got Sophia Boutelle pinned, which makes no goddamn sense.
Well, how much of Ed Skrein is a robot? We never really know.
Like, they established that he was a robot at the end of part 1, and then it never comes up again, because, like, they fight like he's a kind of a regular human, at least as far as what.
And Sophia Boutelle so again, the ship is falling, and she slams at the bottom of the room.
Yeah,
she should not be able to move.
Yeah, so it's the typical, like, Sherlock, like in Sherlock Holmes when he throws a sledgehammer at a guy and he's fine, or in, like, the crappy new Lone Ranger movie, a guy can, like, fall on rocks and be fine. It's just general action hero durability. Like, they don't do anything with the fact that Ed Skrein's a robot. But Gunner was up at the top of this big cliff, somehow, like, fell down and climbed up to get behind Ed Skrein and stabbed him. Did all this while mortally wounded, because once the ship crashes, he dies. Like, he's not in the ship when it crashes. He just is, like, runs out of juice, basically.
And they're all saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you.
It's like, did I miss the part where they actually formed a romantic relationship in the first one, but they're just fuck buddies now? I will say that I do like Ed Skrein's death, because, like, Korra, like, basically
crushes him in a door.
Yeah, almost like bisects him in a door, but then just to make sure, cuts his head off with the lightsaber too.
And for a PG-13 movie, it's actually a pretty violent death.
It's cleverly cut for pun not intended but appreciated for a PG-13.
And again, Ed Skrein gives a very good performance in the movie. Like, he is just going all out with being the bad guy.
Yeah. And then something that confused the shitballs out of me, like, they Korra and Gunner, I thought maybe it was supposed to imply that they just climbed back up to her ship somehow, but there's probably plenty of other ships they could steal. They probably grabbed one. And they get out, and then the Rebel Alliance from the first movie shows up out of nowhere and with no foreshadowing.
For a brief set piece.
To shoot a bunch of fighters that were in the air but never established as actually existing until now.
And take a couple of pot shots at the ground forces.
They don't ever show that area force as having been a threat to the ground forces through that whole fight.
The only excuse I could maybe give for that is, like, again, it's like maybe they finally heard word that the farmers were putting up a fight, and then the resistance was like, okay, maybe we should actually get off our ass and do something.
Well, yeah, I buy that. My question is, what were the bad guys' ships doing, because they weren't contributing dick to the soldiers all dying on the ground?
If they had those fighters, they could have just strafed the enemy.
They could have done something, but no, they only show up because we need something for the resistance to fight.
And Ed Skrein did give the order before the rebels even showed up to just say, oh yeah, that's something we need to get to.
The big plot hole that even had you, like, shaken. Because, like, once Ed Skrein finds out that Korra is on the ship, he's like, you know what, fuck it, just blow them all up, because once we have the
Scargiver.
We have Korra, we have the Scargiver. If we take her back to the Mother World, we'll be fine. Which, it seems to imply that, contrary to what they said in the first movie, like, it's not so much that the Mother World needs this food, it's that one ship needed food and the Mother World wouldn't give it to them, but they will get, like, supplies if they bring back Korra, which is a stupid-ass way for this military to operate.
It just makes no sense. Like, it just kind of collapses, like, because, again, if all Ed Skrein needed was the Scargiver, what they easily could have done is when Ed Skrein goes down to negotiate is have a force ready to walk up and nab Kara, hurry her back onto the ship as a hostage, and then blow the crap out of the farm.
Yeah, like, you can cut it some slack for the first act. I mean, it's still badly explained, but for the first movie. But in this one, now that he knows that Korra is there and whatever dumbass logic they're operating on, he shouldn't still give a crap about the grain if Korra is all he needs.
Yeah, if Korra's all he needs and they don't really need the grain, like...
It's like, even ignoring how stupid the Mother World operates for part 1, you still have that huge plot hole for part 2.
Yeah, that plot hole just kind of be like, I was like, I have no defense.
It's like, it just plows a hole straight through the whole movie that the thing they were fighting over doesn't matter anymore.
I wouldn't say maybe not necessarily through the whole movie, but it at least plows a giant hole right through the villain's motivation.
I'll tell you, it's a lot like when I was watching The Flash, and The Flash tells, like, Barry 1 tells Barry 2, if you use your powers, you'll die. It's a moment so stupid that it just breaks you on and you go, wait, what?
It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't need the grain anymore, I just need the Scargiver. Wait, what?
Like, even if you can rationalize it, it's a moment so out of nowhere dumb that it pulls you out of the movie while your brain, like, kicks on and starts going, like, what does not compute?
Oh no, that came later. Okay, so, yeah, pretty much the fight's over. They're having a sad with the funeral.
Yeah.
For everybody, which again visually looks nice with all the flames. I'm a sucker for good flame effects.
Yeah, there was a touching scene earlier where, like, the water girl made, like, scarves for everyone, like,
to, like, represent
what they were,
parts of them,
and they kind of burned the scarves as a tribute.
And then like Korra, like, finally admits to everyone what Jaimon Hansuno, she's like, I know, girl, I know. And it's like, no, you are not her you are not Princess Issa's killer, because, like, she is still alive. She is something else.
Yeah, so, like,
implying that Princess Issa is literally like an angel or something.
It just occurred to me, why didn't Jimon Hansu tell her that to begin with, if he knows exactly who Korra is and why she's so tortured all the time?
And he had plenty of opportunities to pull her aside, even if she really wanted to keep this private.
Like, he could have just said, are you sad the princess is dead? And she'd be, like, all surprised and say yes. And he's like, good news, the princess is not dead, so haul your ass and crack a fucking smile.
Yeah, like, that part almost broke me. like I was keeping it in, but... the part about, like, oh god, no, Snyder is not doing this, is he? Where he's trying to say she's an angel.
I don't know. Like, my mind is going to Winter's Tale, where that kind of is the case.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, I get it. Maybe Princess Issa's parents loved her so much that she could not die. Okay, real quick. Again, this is a tangent that has not necessarily a whole lot to do with the movie. In the movie A Winter's Tale, not going to bother explaining the movie.
There's no explaining that movie.
But there's a scene where Will Smith is playing Lucifer, and Russell Crowe is befuddled by how Colin Farrell's character is still alive, and Will Smith, referring to Colin Farrell's character's girlfriend in the movie, is like, she made him love her so much that he could not die. And that if you watch Winter's Tale, that moment's gonna break you as it did me.
There is so much wrong with Winter's Tale, but that's kind of like a big moment where it all just collapses into a pool of stupid.
And so that's almost kind of what it's like with Princess Issa's, like, because it's never...
It's not enough that she gets shot and she bleeds light. Apparently she actually is like an angel or something.
And is still alive. And then Anthony Hopkins is like, the princess is still alive? All right, I'll help.
Like, because it's his programming explicitly that he has to help the royal family, so it really is a situation of, I'll help you. Cassian said I had to.
And then and then Korra gives like a couple of like ending lines that I really can't remember the gist of what she's saying.
I think it's like she's gonna go find the princess. All the surviving members of the team are gonna go help her,
and like, we're gonna go fight. Let's fight.
And then so like the hook for part 3, which is actually going to be part 2, part 1, chapter 2, part 1, is basically Korra's going off to find this princess who's going to like restore peace to the universe or some shit. Because what I've heard is Zack Snyder has a grand total of 6 Rebel Moon movies planned to start. Basically, each one is going to be a 2-parter, to where it's a trilogy, but each part of the trilogy is 2 movies. And that's on top of the director's cuts he's got planned for these, where he's going to...
So let's just assume each is 3 out... Let's assume... So this is Snyder's Star Wars ripoff. He just took 4 hours to tell the story of A New Hope.
Pretty much. And if we assume that each director's cut is going to be like 3 hours, ballpark it, his A New Hope will be as long as the entire original trilogy. Give or take.
And by the way,
we need to look up what the part 2's title is going to be.
Yeah, what the part 2's title is going to be, because I said like part 1's director's cut title is going to be Chalice of Blood. I know I sent it to you.
There's something about traitors as the title. I forget what it is though.
Here it is. Okay, so the titles of Zack Snyder's director's cuts for Rebel Moon is part 1 will be The Chalice of Blood, and part 2's director's cut title will be Curse of Forgiveness. Oh, and combined they will be an ultra-violent mythical sci-fi opera with a near 6.5-hour runtime.
So yeah, his A New Hope is going to be as long as the entire original trilogy. Curse of Forgiveness doesn't even sound good. It doesn't even sound cool.
Maybe it's Korra struggling with like the whole... Oh no, I just had a thought.
Oh no, what?
So it's actually relevant. You remember how we were saying, the whole her parents loved her so much she could not die?
Mm-hmm.
What if what keeps her alive was, you know how they say she has how she has healing powers? What if saying she forgives Korra?
Because right before Korra kills the princess says she forgives her.
And yeah, so what if saying she forgives Korra is what keeps her, is what makes her like immortal?
I don't think that's it. I think what it is just Korra says in this movie, like she's haunted by the princess saying that she forgives her. So that might just be what they're referring to.
Might just be it, but it's like
it's a minor plot point compared to everything else the movie's about, though. So it's weird to pick that one moment as the thing. It'd be like
that's the only explanation I can come up with for why the princess is somehow still alive. Is like operating under the logic of all you have to do is forgive someone or love someone hard enough that they can't die.
I mean, we've heard dumber in movies from especially Winter's Tale, but like, I'm going to hold out hope that Snyder's just talking about how, or the title is just a reference to like how Korra is haunted by the princess saying that she forgives her.
I want to know what Chalice of Blood means.
I don't know either, because it's not like there's a lot of blood going around in part 1.
Or at least, yeah, well, maybe that'll be different in the director's.
Unless it's like blood meaning like a bond, like brothers or something, but it still feels like a stretch.
But the word chalice doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
So...
Excuse me, sorry.
So, like the music, like I was saying in part 1, the music in part 2 is still good. I still think that the overall world is enough to keep me invested in terms of like, visually looking at the world. But even I'm gonna have to admit that part 1 is definitely the better of the 2 parts,
which is sad in retrospect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like The first half of part 2 was tolerable. The second half, I was bored through a lot of it. And what's frustrating is the action. I feel like I would have enjoyed the action more if it wasn't all in slow motion. It like Snyder keeps as the obsession with slow motion kills the pacing of this movie to me.
Especially, well, it interrupts, like, okay, so in because I was bringing up 300 while we were watching the movie.
Yeah.
In 300, the slow-mo isn't to a point where it interrupts the flow of the action scenes. The action scenes have a pace to them.
Yeah.
And even when there's slow-mo in movies like whenever John Wick uses slow-mo, it's never enough to where it interrupts the flow of the scene.
It's for a quick moment of showing them doing something cool, but in this fucking movie, like, the lightsaber fight is all in slow motion, and it goes to even slower motion, like going from half speed to quarter speed.
And
like
firing a gun is also in slow-mo. It's like
tossing grain onto a cart is in slow motion.
And apparently Snyder said in an interview when asked about, like, what do you have to say about the criticisms of your use of slow-mo? It looks cool.
Zack Snyder apparently has been wanting to do an adaptation of some, like, kind of right-wing book about
Atlas Shrugged.
No, it's not Atlas Shrugged. It's something else, because Atlas Shrugged did actually get movies done.
Oh, yeah.
It's something about where, like, there's this
the Fountainhead.
Fountainhead, yeah, that's it. Where it's like there's this brilliant architect who's going to build, like, the greatest building ever, but somehow all powerful art critics are, like, conspiring to stop his vision.
Oh no!
It is
no.
I would entirely buy the idea that he's just doing the slow-mo to piss off his critics because he sees them as an antagonistic force to himself. That could be tinfoil hat conspiracy, but I think it fits.
I want to know how much slow-mo he's going to use if that movie ever gets made.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm kind of hoping.
Considering he's still doing Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon and also wants to do the Fountainhead, and I think this idea has pretty much been shot, but he wants to do a straight adaptation of Dark Knight Returns, according to Linkara.
Oh, God, no.
And so it's like... hopefully he'll be too busy to ever actually make that train wreck.
Well, and James Gunn right now, and James Gunn and Peter Safran would be the ones that would have say over that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen, even if Gunn and Snyder are friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rebel Moon Part 2, like, the kindest I can say, kind of taking off my Snyder goggles now for a second viewing and actually kind of agreeing with pretty much almost everything you said, because even I was kind of ranting about the movie, it's a serviceable action movie. You can throw it on. It's not going to be the worst thing you watch.
Honestly, with how much recapping there is, you could probably skip part 1 if you just wanted to, like, tune into part 2 just for the colorful fighting.
Yeah, and so that's the kindest thing I can say is part 2 can work if you just want to. If part 2 can be a rainy day movie. If it's a rainy day outside, you got nothing else to do, you're trapped inside the day, and you want something mildly entertaining to put on, put in Rebel Moon Part 2, and you can just listen to the recap by Anthony Hopkins, and you're golden.
It's kind of like how Schnick has said that he uses the Avatar movie as wallpaper sometimes, just for something on in the background. Like, I thought Part 1 was okay. I thought Part 2 was kind of a disaster. And, like, now I remember what I was going to say. Okay. You could take Part 1 and 2 and combine them into one 3-hour movie easily.
There's no,
especially if you speed up all the slow-mo in Part 2.
and you chop the slow-mo down to only where it's actually necessary.
Yeah.
And you take out some of the non-important stuff. Like, for example, you could chop off almost a near hour of Part 2. Like,
between the farming and the slow-mo, between the farming in the first half and the slow-mo in the second, you could easily cut an hour out of this movie. And then you only need to make up 15 minutes to get it under 3 hours.
And at most, you could maybe have 10 minutes of, what you could do is have 5 minutes of farming and 5 minutes of prepping, and all the while you have that soldier who's now helping everyone, that Motherworld soldier who's helping everyone, giving the voiceover, like, and talking to or cutting back to shots as he's talking to Cassius.
Yeah.
And saying everything is on schedule.
Also, the this was also something I wanted to pop up. Like, Ray Fisher's sister from the first movie shows up as leading the rebels, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we're totally up with you." Again, it kind of makes this like Rogue One, where basically the Resistance needed a victory before they would actually like galvanize into being effective. But it's also like, "Bitch, where have you been? No, you cannot come with us."
We could have used you a while ago.
Yeah, so I just wanted to circle back to that first. But another thing I was gonna say, what I would do with is if I were editing these together, I would add like just narration over like going and getting Tarzan and Ventress, so that you can just kind of trim down their introductions to the essentials and explain why they're awesome and badass and stuff, and that would save you a lot of time.
Like at least show the fight with the spider,
and it would flow better. Like yeah, definitely show the action sequences, but just like less setup to the action sequences and make it more like a little more like a rolling montage of, hey, I know these two cool people we can go get.
Yeah, like have Charlie Hunnam's character talking.
Just yeah, something along those lines. Just if I were making this, and just
No, I agree. There's no reason this needs to be there's
4 hours and 15 minutes going up to 6.5 hours.
Yeah, there's no reason that just this first part of this saga needs to be 6.5 hours, which is again longer than the original trilogy.
This being it's probably about on par with the original trilogy, but it's like the idea of these two movies being 6.5 hours makes me want to blow my. I don't want to finish that sentence because I know references to suicide are not taken well. Actually, I'm gonna go check because I know my DVDs have the runtimes on them. Okay.
So yeah, let's look at the runtimes of the original trilogy.
Okay.
The runtime of A New Hope is 123 minutes. So that's 2 hours and 3 minutes.
2 hours 9 minutes. 2 hours 16 minutes. So it adds up to being slightly less because like we have 6 hours 16 plus 9 plus 3. Okay, so about even with 6.5 hours.
So yeah, it's like Snyder. So you know what? Here, let me. You know what? These are yours. So you do the visual. When Snyder comes out with his director's cuts of this apparently first part of a trilogy in air quotes, would be just this alone with its director's cuts would be as long as this entire trilogy.
Yeah, and these are actually good. By the way, this is like the limited edition that they put out one time where it has the original unaltered cuts of each movie. It's a little dirty, according to Schnick, but honestly, it's the version I always watch. I don't mind it.
Yeah. So yeah, like I'm trying to think of something clever to go to end on because I'm kind of out of things to say at this point.
Double Toasted has 5 ratings that they give movies. Better Than Sex, Full Price, Matinee, Rental, and Some Old Bullshit, and then like stuff that is way below Some Old Bullshit. It gets a fuck you. They have flat out said, if Snyder makes another one of these, it is automatically getting bullshit.
Hey, I'm out of things.
Just Family Guy, like out.
Yep, I'm done. Yeah, like, cause I'm at. Yeah.
Oh, we did.